All right, good afternoon, Hillary. This is, oh man, what is the date today? The 19th of May. And working with Tehya. And she's, so I caught her earlier. And of course she's already pooped in here, so I need to get that out before I work with her. So I'll talk real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and just tie her to the fence right here. And I'm gonna muck that up real quick. Then we'll get started with her. So I've been out of town. I've been at this horse show now for, since Wednesday. Today's Sunday. So I worked with her on Wednesday, got all the horses worked Wednesday morning, and then headed out to the horse show. It was up in Nebraska. And today is Sunday, and we got back from the horse show and working with them again. So they've had 3 days off, basically, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Which is not bad. You know, I've been going pretty consistent on these guys. They really haven't had many days off, so really having a couple days off wasn't a bad thing. Because if I had my, you know, a perfect setup where I had all the time in the world, I would do 5 days a week and give them 2 days off. But I tend not to take any days off that I don't have to, because things always happen where I have to take days off, like the horse show that I don't have control over. And so they get time off anyway. But anyway, so we'll see how she is after having a couple days off. My hope is that she hasn't, you know, that time off doesn't make her forget everything that we've worked on. She was quite good to go in and catch. She didn't run around at all today, which is awesome. That's a huge improvement. She was really good to catch, I think on Wednesday, and which was kind of the first time I've been able to just go in and immediately catch her. And then today she was the same way. So hopefully we're kind of past some of this being nutty to get caught thing. Then once I caught her today, I just tied her up into the rail in there because I needed to work some other horses. So she's been tied for 3-4 hours now. And then went and grabbed her and brought her in here to work. And then I had to set up my camera. So I turned her loose in here, just dropped the lead rope, and I don't know what she did in here while I was out setting up the camera and stuff. But you can see she's a little bit too reactive in here. Hopefully you can, yeah, we're right in front of the camera. Hey there, girl, this is great. See, this is what it's normally like, but you can see her head's a little bit tense here. Like, she's playing ball, she's focused on me, everything's good, but you can see she's not totally relaxed about it. There's still some tenseness, but you know, I take this big time over what we had, you know, last week and stuff. So this is called a hyoid release. I'm not sure if I've talked about it before, but I've started doing it with her a fair bit. I think it helps. So the hyoid release is just, they have a nerve or a sensor or something kind of in the corners of their mouth there that when it's activated, it causes them to lick and chew. And, you know, licking and chewing is great. You don't want to, in my opinion, and this is all, there's a lot of different theories on the hyoid release and the different science behind all this stuff. My opinion, you don't want to overuse the hyoid release, but sometimes if they're just kind of stuck, like she tends to be a lot of the time, you can use that to just kind of get them out of that trance-like state. And for her, I think the more messing around you do with her, the more just everything, just patting her all over, like something I've been doing quite a bit with her is just coming up here. So notice I've got this lead rope fairly short and just petting on her. You know, I'm not slapping her hard or anything, but just patting her, making some noise. And then when she stops like that, release. And just teaching her that, you know, running away is not always the answer. And I think that's what's helped with catching her so much. And, you know, that's going to be super important when we actually go to ride her. So when I walked up to her that time, you know, she still had some of that flinchy, like tightening up her side thing. You probably couldn't see it from that side. But, you know, we really want that stuff to go away, because if she's flinchy and tightening up just by me walking up here, who knows what the hell's going to happen when I put the saddle on and swing up on her back. So we just want that stuff to go away. I'm trying to be bigger around her. You notice I'm very loose today. I'm very, like, you know, flopping all over the place. I want her to get used to that. I don't want her to, or I don't want myself to fall into the trap of, let me sneak up to you and try to get the halter on. You know, I'm just gonna be big, and that way someday I'm just gonna come up here and throw the saddle over her back and kind of flailing like this, right? And she's gotta learn just to stand there. She's a little locked up right there. She didn't move, she didn't leave, but she's kind of braced up a little, so I just walked her forward just to untrack her feet and get her loosened up, and see now her head comes down, there's looking at you. All she had to do was just loosen up right there. So we've kind of got the ability to access her brain now and get her to loosen up. Now we just have to use the tools to actually make her loosen up. So we've kind of built the tools, now we got to use them. Eventually we shouldn't have to use them and she'll learn to loosen up like that on her own. That's of course the goal. But, you know. You can see she kind of thinks she's supposed to leave in a situation like that, and then realizes, no, I think I'm not supposed to leave, you know. That's where we've made the most progress, I think, in the last couple of days. Now, she walked up to me right there, so I'm just going to transition into groundwork. I'm not going to punish her for that. But see how she had to kind of get away from me to start that groundwork? I'm just going to go transition to this. So it's just a matter of listening to her, let her kind of tell me what needs to be worked on. I love how when she's kind of going to the outside of the circle, which is not great, but whenever she touches the end of that halter and that lead rope, she pops right back into it. And then you can see how low her head is, which correlates to her head being loose. See how every time, boom, right there, she hits the end of that lead rope. Boom, right there, she hits the end of that lead rope. And every single time, her head's popping back to the inside. And popping's the wrong word, because it's very soft. She's just softly bending to the inside. And that's exactly what we want, because if I'm riding her, and I want to steer her, I want to be able to pick up that rein and have her bend nicely to the inside. If you're ponying her, right, she's got a pack saddle on or something, every time you touch that halter, you want her to give nicely to it, right? That's going to save you a lot of heartache in the ponying realm. Good, I'm going to go ahead and trot her. I'd really like to get her loping a little bit. That's something I haven't really done in the groundwork, and it's high time that we do that. We've kind of spent all the time up to now trying to get her not to trot, trying to slow things down, let her know, hey, you can just walk. And that's great, and now you can tell that she's found that nice, easy walk, which is great, but it's time, you know, as soon as she finds that, you want to switch gears and start pushing her faster. Because we want her to be responsive, we want to have a lot of forward motion, just we don't want her running away from us, right? Or if we're on her back, running away with us. Keep driving her forward. But even at this trot, you notice every time this halter comes a little bit tight, like right there, she bends back to the inside. And that's why her neck's staying nice and soft. Now, again, her neck is nice and soft, right? But she's always used to using her head and neck as a counterbalance to get her body moving. When her neck is soft and not being used, that means she has to actually drive up and use her body. Well, her body's not used to that. And so that's why she's getting tired rather quickly right here, is because her body's actually being used correctly and she's not really used to it. So, I mean, it's a good thing, you know. Because you know as well as I do, she could run a lot longer than this if she's in a frantic up state and her head and neck is bouncing all over the place and up and everything. But you can see I'm having to keep her driven up. And this is exactly how I would want it if I was under saddle, right? I would want to be driving her into that trot the whole time. Not really having to pedal. You know, she should find a gait and stay there. But I also shouldn't have to be holding her back. And if I just kind of sit down and relax, she should just come down to a walk or even a stop. You know, communicate with me right there. If I ask her to keep going, but just go in a walk, she didn't blast off. Remember, I think last video, it was just every time I asked her to go, it was an explosion. And I think we ended that day getting a couple of send-offs that weren't explosions, and we called it a day there. And you can see how much better this is. There's a nice looking at you. I'm just gonna offer her an opportunity to stop. Beautiful. That's exactly what I want that to look like. Probably talked about this before, but I'm just going to give her a second to relax and look and chew here. You see so many horses out in the pasture that are older and they're sway backed and they just look like crap, and you can tell if you maybe some people don't know this, but I can tell when I'm looking at them, they've been ridden for years without being taught to carry their back, to carry the weight correctly. And so you think about all that unnatural weight sitting on their back, if they're not engaging their core and holding it, it's just gonna sink their backbone in, and that's why you get a sway-backed horse, right? And nobody wants to have an old sway-back horse sitting in the pasture. We wanna have a horse that somebody goes, holy crap, that horse is 30, I had no idea, he looks like he's 10, you know? That's what I want for her, is to carry her back correctly, which is gonna increase her longevity, it's gonna make a smoother ride for you. So horses don't just have, horses aren't naturally just a bumpy ride or a smooth ride. Now, there's some conformation aspects to that too. Like some horses will be naturally smoother than others. But there's a gradient there. You can make every horse a smoother horse by teaching it to carry itself correctly. Vice versa, you can make every horse more bumpy by allowing it to not use its body correctly. So, all right, I'm gonna switch back to desensitizing and kind of being with her, if you will. See how she's trying to get away from that? So I'm just gonna go with her. I'm not gonna say, hey, you can't leave. Good, I'm just gonna go with her until she stops. Now there I'm kind of was indecisive there. That wasn't the best on my part. She just left on her own, so I'm doing the opposite, which is leading her back into this. Right there, there's some tension. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I mean, I don't want the tension, but I'm looking to get that tension out of there. Right there. So notice it's always in that portion of the circle right there because the gate is right here in front of the camera. So right about here, she says, hey, I think I want to go to that gate. That was better. And she gets stiff on the rope every time we hit that point. I'm gonna stop there because that was really good. Now there, I pointed one way and she was not paying any attention. She was actually blocking me out, and so that's why she missed what direction to go. So it's not a big deal. I'm not gonna get mad at her about it. It's just she had to do a little extra work right there. There was a little extra pressure that she didn't have to experience. And I know for us, we were probably like, oh, that didn't mean anything. That wasn't a big fight or anything. But in her mind, that extra pressure, she will try to find a way to avoid that. So it's making the wrong thing hard and the right thing easy. The wrong thing was just a little bit harder than the right thing right there, and that's all it needs to be for her to look for a better way to do it. So this is the kind of trot I would rather ride. I'd like her to stay up in this trot, but it's a whole lot better than the kind of trotting we've had in previous times, previous sessions. And again, I'm making the wrong thing hard and the right thing easy because when she stays in that nice easy trot, there's no pressure, right? So a lot of people will lunge their horse and they just keep swinging the rope or keep swinging the whip the entire time the horse is lunging. And I'm not doing that. As soon as the horse gets to the gate I want, like that, I stop the pressure, right? And when the horse does the wrong thing, like break to a walk, then there's more pressure. So she's gonna actually find this comfortable zone in the trot. Now she's having a hard time with it here because whenever she goes into the trot, she wants to stiffen up her neck, but she also wants to have it nice and loose because she's kind of figured out that that's easier. And she's like, why don't you just let me walk? Because I've figured out how to have a nice loose neck in the walk. She's like, I can focus on you and do everything right in the walk, but when I get to the trot, I have to stick my head way up in the air and nothing really quite works. And she's like, I don't like that, so just let me walk. And I'm going, no, why don't you just figure out how to trot? There we go, that's better. Why don't you figure out how to trot collected and nice and focused on me and all those sorts of things with a soft neck? So do you ever think you'd have to really drive this horse to get her to trot? To get her out of a walk, you'd have to like swing this rope every 2 steps. That was better. Okay, so we know that for whatever reason, at least today, I don't think this has been a recurring thing, going to the right, with me on her right side, she was able to trot pretty nice and loose, keep her neck nice and loose and relaxed through that. For whatever reason, going to the left side, she wasn't able to. Now, that's just something I'm going to file in the back of my brain, remember that, and see if it keeps coming up. If not, you know, it could just be, could be a lot of different factors. But if that's something that becomes a continuous thing, then that means there's some physical issue that's happening on her left side that we need to address. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my desensitizing here. A little bit better. Still felt the need to move there a little bit. I'm gonna do some lateral flexion. So she's pretty stiff there, and you can't see it, but this left eye is totally, was totally looking away from me. It's just blocking me out. You could see all that white in the corner of the eye, meaning her eye is way out that way instead of back here on me. And then see how stiff that is. So I'm just holding that, waiting for that eye to roll back to me, meaning her end of the ear. I'm watching the eye and the ear. Because when I touch this lead rope, I want her brain to come over here in lateral flexion, maybe even more so than her body. There we go. So she's pretty stiff on that still. That's definitely not the kind of lateral flexion I would want before I actually get on her or even start saddling. And you notice there's still a lot of flinching and stuff going on here, like that right there. Whenever I kind of move a little bit fast or do anything over here, there's flinching. So it just, you know, it's getting better. Like we're making progress now. The other day I was kind of frustrated because it didn't seem like we were making any progress. We're definitely making progress now, so that's really cool. I'm just kind of pointing out the things so that it, you know, if anyone's, because this is going out to public YouTube, so if anybody's watching this and is like, why in the world are you not just stepping on that horse? She's fine, she's ready. I'm just pointing out all the things that she's not actually ready, because I like my health and I don't want to get bucked off a horse. And, you know, I don't stake my manliness or my toughness or my reputation on being able to break every bronc out there and ride everything. No, that's stupid. It's stupid because this horse is going to go to a client who I know doesn't want to get bucked off. She's probably plenty capable of riding stuff, but if she wanted that, she would have just ridden these horses on her own, you know? So most clients that you're either going to sell horses to or you're training horses for don't want to get bucked off a horse. You know, some cowboys enjoy that, but most clients do not. So why would I ride through bucks on this horse if I can, you know, get her in a mental state where she's not going to buck? I would much prefer that for the client's sake, regardless of my own. Now, I don't want to ride through the bucks either, so. Much better. And there, see how, it wasn't perfect, but you see how when her head came back to center, it actually came back a little bit lower instead of coming back up? Something I've talked about quite a bit. So now that I've done all that lateral flexion on her left side, I want to go ahead and send her to the left and see if it's any better here. Notice at that time she actually caught which way I was pointing because she's actually paying attention to me. And I love how there was no explosion over there. Sometimes it's easy to forget just how good a horse is comparatively to what you had before. And I just want to remember back to just the last video I made, I believe. She was just exploding every single time I would send her. And then today she's this good. It's so cool to see improvements like that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask her to trot. It's a nice baby little trot, but I'd really like her to actually move out a little bit. Come on. You can see she's just really not used to driving up through her body, through her hind end, like just good collected driving up from the body. She's not really used to doing that. She's used to either exploding with that fast twitch, like adrenaline fueled muscles, Or she's used to bobbling her head around to get her legs to move, right? She's just not very used to this actually intentionally driving off with the muscles. But this is what's gonna get her in really good shape right here. It's gonna get those back muscles built up. And notice how much driving I'm doing and how little slowing down I'm doing. That's, in my opinion, that's what you want. Good, I love how she stepped over in the back. Her head immediately comes down. She's nice and tuned into me, looking at you. Beautiful. Give her a second on that. I want to keep doing, I can keep narrating it or I can just keep going. I'm basically going to be doing the same thing for the rest of the session that I've been doing. I just want to do more of it, but I really want to get to where I can come up here. Oh, that's so much better. And I was a little smoother in the way I came up here. I wasn't quite as like, if I was a cowboy, just bringing my saddle up and just whoo, throwing my saddle over, you can see that still kind of gets to her. So I need to do more of this, like being bigger. And then she stops, good. If I had my saddle here and I just came up and threw it over her back, she'd still be running away. But then she stops, good girl. Throw my saddle over her back, good. She thought about leaving, but she actually didn't. And retreat. All right, now she went ahead and stepped up to me, so I'm just gonna send her. No big deal, not punishment or anything, it's just choosing what I do next. So if she walks up into my space, the next thing I'm gonna ask her to do is get out. It's something that requires getting out of my space, like sending. If she had been backing away right there, like trying to get away, I would probably do something like leading her up or desensitizing or something that has to do with getting more in my space. And the reason I sent her one more time there is she didn't really step over with her hind foot there and really face up, so I just want to end with going the opposite direction until she really steps around and faces up. She didn't really face up there. And you can see because she wasn't ready for it, that's why it got a little crazy. If she had been ready for it, it wouldn't have been a big deal. One of the things that she's learning through this process is that work actually is easier if she slows down, thinks about it, finds the answer, and she doesn't actually have to work as hard. The more animated she gets about this work, the more work it is, basically. The more she slows down, thinks through things, and finds the answer, she actually gets to work easier. And that's what I want her to find under saddle too. You know, if I get under saddle and she starts tearing around this arena and bucking and carrying on, it's just making her do more work. Like, I'm not probably going to ask her to do near as much work during the session as she would do voluntarily if she went around bucking and stuff. Good. She thought about running the wrong direction there and she went, wait, I know what to do. Let me yield my shoulder, control my body, not out of fear, but out of knowledge of what I need to be doing. That was excellent. Okay, I'll take that. She's not perfectly faced up, but I'll take that right there. Good girl. I want to find, at this point, I kind of want to get hands all over her and find any spots. Is that flank going to be a big deal to her? Where the girth is going to be, is that going to be a big deal? Is it front legs, shoulders, neck? Head's kind of coming up there a little bit. This spot between her ears is always an issue. I'm gonna try not to get smacked in the face here. There she stops, and I'll take my hand away. Good. So that's a spot I need to remember to work on every day for a little bit till that kind of goes away. I just want to make sure everything, that I can touch her everywhere I need to, and nothing's an issue. If you're out packing on her, or you're ponying her or riding her, and you know some strap happens to bump her in the wrong spot, or you know you're not even thinking about it, you just go to reach through her back leg to grab a blanket strap or something like that. We want to find those places now in a controlled environment before you have an issue out on the ride. So she kind of stepped back there. She's kind of doing that lean back thing where she's like, I'm going to get as far away as I can without actually moving my feet. So the next thing I'm going to do is just ask her to go forward. And you can see she wasn't set up to go forward, so she had a little issue there. And then she had to be like, okay, how do I rock my weight forward and actually push off? So again, it's always just do the opposite. I want to get this horse as balanced, forward and backward, left and right, mentally, just as balanced as I can possibly be in every way. Balanced between sensitization and desensitization. So like this should mean nothing. But if I take my fingers here on her side, just like I would with my spur or my leg, let's say I want to move her hips that way, I'm just going to touch her on the side, and you can see she's extremely sensitized to that. That's great. Now I'd like her to step over in the back a little bit instead of together. See, that's a together, over. Good. That's how I want her to finish that right there. Very good. But then she's not sensitive to this. So I can touch her here, but if I press like my leg would be, cueing, she should step off of that right there. Good. Beautiful. Love that. And then I should be able to do some lateral flexion. Good. She's kind of popping her head back to the front, so I'm just going to keep doing this until, oh, that's good. She left her face there, and then she came back to center, but in a much more calm, slow way, and her head actually came down a little bit. Now I've done a lot of work on that left side. I want to make sure I keep everything balanced, do just as much work on this right side. So she thinks, I think she's not moving out of fear. She thinks that I'm asking her to move because I am patting her in that spot where I usually ask her to move. So I'll just let her know that's not what I want. She comes to a stop, be done. Come back up here. Pet her, up where the girth goes. Back. All right, so there's an issue. There's a spot. Notice if you're going to do this with your horse, notice the length of my lead rope right here. This is what's going to keep me from getting kicked. Because if you don't have this fairly tight and you haven't done the kind of work I've done leading up to this to where your horse is nice and supple to the lead rope, your horse could spin and kick you right here. You're in a pretty non-dominant position, pretty dangerous position if your horse isn't, if you're not holding your lead rope in the right length and if your horse isn't nice and responsive to that lead rope. So just touching her up all over, anywhere that she might feel a bit sensitive, we want to desensitize that. Now because her head's kind of not supple there, I'm just going to do some lateral flexion to the right. Better. She really looked over here. She didn't supple up her neck at all, but her brain came over here, and so I'm going to release and reward for that brain coming over more so than for the body coming over here. Because the main thing is I need her brain to follow the lead rope. If the brain follows, the body will follow. She's still blocking me out that eye, and then right there she brought that eye over. Good, and then you can see she loosens up her neck. Beautiful. So she kind of just went there on her own. I think I'll just send her the opposite direction. And just say, hey, you're late because you're supposed to be over here. So you might not want to do that next time. Again, I'm not punishing her for it, just making it more difficult. Yeah, I was going to let her stand there for a while, but now we're going to do some more work. I'm going to be a little more insistent that she go because she chose this. I didn't choose to send her. She chose to go. Now, I chose where to send her, but she went without me sending her. So now we're going to do some work. So I want her to stay in this trot, and I want her to keep that head over to the side. So like right there, let's see if she does it again. In order to loosen up her neck and be able to look over here, she has to come to a walk. And I'm going to say, no, keep your neck and head loose, but stay in the trot. Right there, she was in the trot, and her head and neck stiffened up. So you're kind of tossing her head this way, like she's like, how can I get off this halter pressure without actually loosening up my head and neck? And this kind of happens, like I was about to be done with her, and I think we hit a little bit of a breaking point in her brain, like, you know, she just got tired, basically. It was like, okay, I'm over it. That's okay, we just worked through it. I would like to have quit before we got to that point, but that's okay. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different here. I'm gonna do what I've been doing with, I think I've done this with Braveheart. I might have done this with her, I can't remember. Anyway, I'm gonna attract her attention right there. Boom, she looks at me, and then I'm gonna ask her to keep going. I think my wife's back with a load of hay out there. And that might be why she lost attention too. She might have heard the truck coming in. Attract her focus and then ask her to keep going. So she's super dull right there. So I'm gonna get pretty intense with her. Now, even though this horse is usually super overreactive, right now she's being dull, right? So the whole work with the horse you have today. If she's being dull, I'm gonna get her out of being dull. And that's part of balancing it up too. You don't want the horse, there we go. You don't want the horse overreactive, but you also don't want them over dull. There we go. Now it's not taking as much to get her going, because I kind of let her know, hey, I'm serious about this. But her head and neck are not doing very good, so that's why I'm working on that. You can see I'm picking up on this lead rope every little bit and trying to draw that head, loosen up that head and neck, get it pointed at me. Get her looking at me, I should say. It's not about physically pointing at me, it's about her brain being on me. Because right now her brain's really not on me. It's 1,000 different places right now. There she was like, oh, I'll just try something totally different. Maybe but this is what he wants. Like, no, girl, you know, we've been doing this for 2 months now. You know what I want. You know the cues. All you have to do is watch me. No, that's not it. She's like, I think just doing whatever I think might be the right thing to do in the moment would be a lot better plan than actually having to watch you and pay attention and focus in here. There, she's a little bit focused. See, now I do want her to go the other way. See, now she wasn't even thinking go the other way. So that's what I do. Again, balance everything up. So it's really this left side. It's super sticky right here. She's pretty good on the other side. Remember I talked about that earlier? I put that in my little memory piggy bank, and it's popping up again. So this left side really needs some work for whatever reason. She's not, whenever this lead rope comes tight right here, she's not actually bending and looking in towards me right here. And as soon as she does look in, she has to come to a complete stop. So she's capable of focusing on me if she's stopped, but she's not capable of moving her feet and maintaining that focus. See, as soon as her feet move, her focus goes out there. That's a little bit better. Ooh, yeah. Now I'm going to offer her a chance to stop. So if you remember, that entire interaction was caused because she walked off by herself. So again, it's not a big deal. It doesn't have to turn into a big fight. You don't have to whip her for 5 minutes for walking off. But she'll remember, even though as a human we might not, you know, a horse remembers, man, what caused that? That was a lot of work. That really sucked. What caused that? And she'll remember that that was because she walked off on her own. So she's kind of exploring her options now. She's thinking a lot of different places, but you can tell that her focus has mainly come back to me now. And again, if her feet follow her focus somewhere else, then I'll do something about it. I'll send her again. But as long as she's just thinking, oh, should I go over there? No, okay. Should I go over there? No, okay. And then she refocuses, recenters. There's a lick and a chew. Head comes way down. This is beautiful. This is exactly what I want. I think I'm going to go ahead and be done with her. This is a great ending spot. You can see she just looks really good right there. She's kind of rebalancing. She's not actually walking into my space. She's not set back like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. She's very intent on me. Very present, was until she heard that horse whinny. But even with that, she looked over, it's like, what was that? And then she came back to being present. It's excellent. This is the mental state that I would want before I got on her, let's say. Now, obviously, she's not ready to get on. I haven't even saddled her. But this is now the mental state. How long did it take us to get there? Probably an hour. I'm not sure how long we've been going, but we need to be able to get to this mental state as soon as I bring her in the pen. And we need for this mental state to stay pretty consistent throughout the session in order to actually get on her back. You can see she loses that mental state pretty easily. But at least, you got to have a spark before you can have a flame, right? You can't have a nice big campfire that lasts you for hours and hours and hours without a little spark first. If you just get that, if you had a flint and steel and you got a little spark and you said, well, that's stupid, that spark's it's not a campfire, it's not going to help me any, there's no warmth in that spark, right? So you throw it out, you're never going to have a fire because you can never get to a fire unless you have that spark. Same thing with these guys. You've got to nurture that little spark of goodness right there. Build it, and build it, and build it until eventually it lasts you for hours and hours or days, whatever. All right, let's be done on her. I'm going to grab Braveheart. Probably do Louie tonight. I don't know if I'll video those. I mainly wanted to video with her, so. Good girl, you did good. And just this right here, the fact that I can walk up here, pet her on the face, she maintains eye contact, maintains presence, didn't even lean back, much less run away. Huge, huge, huge improvements. So really happy with what we're getting done on her. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.